The 14th level of the pyramid is divided from the pyramid to show that there's a difference between the accepted or speculative Freemasons, who are ordinary people like you and I, and then you have these power-mongering oligarchs they think of themselves as being separate. It is these individuals that are responsible for the bringing in of occult symbols of this magnitude, you see.
What does that say at the bottom there? Novus Ordo?
Ordo Seclorum is New Order of the Worlds, or the New World Order. That term comes from the Romans, who believed that they were bringing a new order to the world. And there's much talk today, again, about why this euphemism has been used in politics. But again, that's outside the scope of this present presentation. What it really has to do with is the fact that there was an old world order and a new world order. That when America was founded, it was considered that there was a separation now from what we call the land of the old world structure, financially and economically and religiously, and America signaled a new world order. And the pyramid, again, you see, is a signal, a very important symbol with the eye in it, the eye on the pyramid. And this is like a zodiac circle, the seal of the United States. Circles like this often represented a magical circle or magical precinct, you see, or the zodiac itself.
With 13 letters on the outside,
yes,
inner track?
Indeed, yes. Charles Taze Russell, for instance, people who think this is all way beyond anything that they will ever become exposed to, that is not true, because individuals in America, famous people, Charles Taze Russell, who's considered the head of the Mormon Church, was buried under an Illuminati pyramid with Freemasonic symbols. He was a Freemason. Most of the religions of the world are actually controlled by Freemasonry or have some connection to it, to some secret society. Here again, for within a year of Washington's death, it was recognized that the great man would most fittingly be memorialized by means of a massive pyramid. In the years following the Revolution, the Masonic fraternities held ceremonial layings for such new enterprises as bridges, locks, universities, government buildings, state houses, memorials, and even churches. Such buildings were aligned with the stars and with the spiritual beings who ruled the stars. Now that's an interesting statement. Although a survey of the foundation charts used in the early phase of the building of Washington, D.C. reveals that the importance of astrology, and indeed confirms beyond doubt that astrology played an important role in the early Masonic rites, the rationale of astrology was rarely discussed openly, even in Masonic documents. And then he continues to say, knowledge of the stars, insofar as they were understood in Masonic circles, was preserved as secrets best left to those with specialist knowledge of such things. That basically means that it was concealed from the ordinary people by the historians because it was very secret, and they didn't want to expose that this stuff was going on behind the scenes.
And kept it also from regular Freemasons.
Right, absolutely. The tradition, and why? What would be the point of doing all this, going to these millions of dollars of expense? Well, he suggests here that the tradition of a godlike tutelary city ruler was much older than this idea of planetary intelligences. The ancient records indicate that it was a practice in former ages for the mystery centers that directed civilization to hand out newly founded cities to the care of specific spiritual beings. So by aligning things to certain stars, they were absolutely making the cities into ritual sites. So what we have to understand, and what is key, which the point that I'd like to bring out every time I talk on this, is that a city is a ritual site. When you see a magician standing within a circle in these old images of the magician within his circle, within his precinct, we are in one. By being inside a city which is designed according to these layouts with this stellar and sidereal symbolism, whether you know it or not, you are participating in a ritual that you don't know exists. So certain assassinations, certain events that take place, ceremonies, erections of this, openings of that, it is part of a much greater ritual that we are not privy to. That's a very important point. And he says here again, the practice of assigning places to the rule of specific zodiological signs, and thus in medieval times to spiritual beings, is very ancient and has been extended to modern times. Since the discovery of America, we are able to trace most of the sources for the zodiological rulerships ascribed to the cities of the United States. So now people have proven that each city in America can in fact be traced to its divine overlord, or its symbolic, tutelary spirit. Perhaps it is sufficient that we recognize as true the medieval arcane notion that such beings could be invited to participate in the life of a city by means of the spiritual art of astrology. Now this is from the works of the Founding Fathers. More down to earth, we have this idea of the Statue of Liberty. People have recognized this. This picture doesn't show it, but the Statue of Liberty actually stands on a peculiar eight-pointed star. Even the pedestal which the statue sits on is very curious. But for now, I just want to bring out 2 points. One is the headdress. This, even though the Liberty statue is Grecian in decoration, the goddess that it is showing is not Grecian or French. It is Egyptian. The goddess on the right there is actually called Sechet, and we get our number 7 from her. And the 7 crowns, or the 7 rays, is Egyptian. And then the thing that she's holding there is the flame of liberty, they say. Well, that is Grecian, and that actually comes from an object called the Palladium. And this was passed on from one dying civilization to a new one. So when we see the Statue of Liberty holding the flame of the new world, there's a very great significance as to why that is. And we find that symbol of the flame on gas stations and many other areas. The President Kennedy's tomb, I believe, has one of these palladiums, and people will see it commonly. One of the most beloved symbols of Freemasonry is the compass and the set, or the square. Where does that come from? It is a symbol of the meeting of the earth god and the sky goddess. And the phallus, or the male member of the earth god, is the obelisk, and the overarching night sky. That is the symbol behind the compass and the G. And G in the middle represents generation. Now this has many, many symbols. It also means geometry, of course, but it has to do with a symbol of the coming together of the male and the female, the god of the earth and the goddess of the sky, going way back to Egypt. And then talking about corporate logos more specifically, here we have the compass turning up covertly, or as a designer, in the symbol of the car Acura. In fact, the word Acura comes from Mercury, Macura. Cars are often named after gods, like for speed. So Mercury was the winged god, you see, the winged feet. So Acura is a shortened version used in ancient times for Mercury, actually. And the compass just shows who is in control of that company, or Masonic. The Malta cross, in hoc signo victe, which is in this sign I shall conquer, with the crown and the cross, is a very famous Masonic symbol. Here it's the Knights of Columbus, also use the Malta cross. Very famous symbol. Where do we find it? We also find it on the Nazis, who were nothing more than a front for Masonic lodges and for the Illuminati, using the eagle from Egypt, the skull and bones, and the oak leaves of the Druids. You see, these are all occult symbols. In America, you have the cavalry using the 2 acorns on their hats, and you'll always see oak leaves on the French generals, on the Soviet generals. You will see the oak leaves. How come they're all enemies, and yet they all use the same symbolism? Because they're only enemies in front of us. Behind the scenes, they're very much part of the same group. And the Knight of Malta cross is found then on the gas station Arco. One thing I teach the children also when it comes to symbolism is be very wary. You know, when you're in the early stages, it's a little bit hard to get a grip on this. So one of the rules of thumb is, if you see a word that generally doesn't mean anything in English, pay a special attention to it, because 90% of the logos in front of us and product logos don't mean anything in English, but they do in Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Egyptian, or one of the great magical languages. Arco is a case in point. All you need to add to that letter, or that word, is the letter N at the end, and it will make the word Archon, and Archon means the fallen angels. The word Arco means the fallen ones, or the fallen angels, or the keepers of light. Exon has the Knights of Malta, a cross. That double X there is actually a Masonic symbol, as a man on the right, a knight. It's called the Cross of Lorraine, the double cross, the Cross of Lorraine. Here we have the 5-pointed hexagram again, or the 5-pointed star with the crescent moon. Here are various symbols again from Freemasonry, is the dove. The dove is very important. You find it on heraldry and here on royal standards, with the Knights of Malta cross on the left and the dove. And the Spanish word for dove is columban, or columbanus. So when you have the District of Columbia, Columbia Pictures, British Columbia, you see, or Columbine High School, for instance, there's something being told to us. It has to do with the dove and a secret society connected to the symbol of the dove. The black horse, which people often see, and if you watch media a lot, if you watch television, you will see the symbol of the black horse being used in sitcoms and in all sorts of dramas. You'll see a bookend, or a very common symbol. You find it on cars. You find it on the Lloyd's Stock Exchange in England. You find it on Wellcome, the pharmaceutical giant. You find it, the symbol of the black horse, on Maserati, or is it Ferrari, for instance. And many, many corporations have the symbol of the black horse. It is another symbol for a secret society coming out of Italy, the Illuminati and so on. And what they're doing is they're playing on a symbol. The word